Hey, Pioneers. Welcome to episode number 448. Today's episode, we are talking about taming anxiety, how to turn worry into purpose on your homestead. I know that right now, at the time of this recording, here in the US, we are moving into the elections for our next president. And even aside from it being an election time, there's high levels of anxiety and worry, and some for very real reasons. We've, went through as a country, Hurricane Helene came through, which was absolutely horrific. But even without those natural disasters, and I don't know if you could call the election a natural disaster, we'll leave that where it is, excuse my humor, but there's always things that we can be worried about, and there's always things that can go wrong. However, homesteading offers us a peace of mind in a very tangible way, and also helps us to be prepared for the future. And being prepared and looking at the reality of things, but doing it through a lens that allows you to move forward with peace and purpose and focus and not get overwhelmed with all of the bad things that could happen or the what ifs. All of that we can control with our thoughts and our mind, and our mental health can be positively impacted by being prepared and with homestead. In fact, I would argue that it should be. And if it's not, then this is definitely the episode that you need to listen to. And even if you're like, no, I am totally, which I hope is the case, I am totally coming at homesteading and this lifestyle from a place of peace, I think you will still find some very valuable tools inside today's interview and episode that will help you do that even further and keep you on that path. So I'm really excited for today's guest. Today's guest is Brittany Nelson, and Brittany is a longtime member of the Pioneering Today Academy, which is my membership. Brittany has been homesteading in a suburban area and suburban homes since 2015. She's become very proficient at growing in containers, raised beds, and small plots of land, along with spending time in the kitchen. Brittany is a mom of an autistic son, so she does a lot of research on how foods work as medicine and how they interact with people who have special needs. She jokingly admits her homestead cleaning methods are best described as there appears to have been a struggle. And one of the things I most enjoy about Brittany and having her in our community is she always makes people smile and always brings a really fun sense of humor to things. And so I always enjoy getting to see Brittany's perspective and her posts and seeing how much she is doing in a suburban setting, because you truly can do a lot. One of the things that Brittany is doing in her most recent endeavor has been going back to class to earn a degree in psychology. And so you'll get to see all of those fun things come together in today's interview. And today's podcast episode is brought to you by the Pioneering Today Academy, which the Pioneering Today Academy is, as I said, it is my online membership. Not only is it a full course of all of my master classes and courses teaching you step by step how to do these aspects of homesteading, but we have this incredible community. And that is where Brittany is at. And you'll hear her talk about that some. And you'll hear her talk about quilting community in your very real geographical location, even with folks who aren't necessarily homesteading. You can go to, we'll have a link, melissaknorris.com, and check out the Pioneering Today Academy, learn more about that, as well as we will be linking to different things. So you can find that if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to it the old-fashioned way, which is how I usually consume my podcasts on the go. You can find all of this in today's blog post that accompanies this episode at melissaknorris.com/448, because this is number 448. All right, here is the fabulous conversation with Brittany. Well, Brittany, welcome to the Pioneering Today podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I am also very excited for this topic. One, because there seems to be a bit of controversy. I don't even know if controversy is the right word, but people have very strong opinions, I think, about this topic. And oftentimes with those strong opinions, they really miss a lot of valuable things that can be adopted from, or even with the mindset, like in talking about this, like they miss out on a lot when they just put up that wall. And this tends to be one of those areas where I see people's walls go up. And so we're just going to put it all out on the table. And that's really both the aspect of preparedness, but also mental health and the mental aspect with that kind of go hand in hand. So within the context of homesteaders, because obviously you and I and most of the people who listen to the podcast or watch it on the YouTube channel identify at some degree to the term homesteading or are interested in homesteading if they don't feel like they full on are yet. And I've really noticed within the homesteading crowd that when you bring up the term being prepared, that a lot of people will immediately be like, don't talk about that. Like that's fear mongering. Not all, but there'll be like this strong reaction that I'll see, especially in comments. And it's like, whoa, like hold up there. Like let's chat about this, because talking about being prepared is not fear mongering, but it's interesting how a lot of people immediately take that jump or immediately take that stance. So I always will say that overall homesteaders aren't necessarily identifying as a prepper per se, but maybe we are and just have a misunderstanding of that term. So I thought it'd be kind of fun for us to get some history on preppers and kind of explain what that term means, both, like historically, and then what society is kind of seeing of that now.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. And we can really pick at it and talk about the history of it, the mindset of it, why we do it. And we're really going to hammer into that. It's going to be really cool. It's a really great, interesting research. If you're interested in looking at that kind of thing, it's really cool.
Yeah. Okay. Let's jump there. Let's talk some history.
All right. So basically, the term prepper really means making active preparations for disasters or emergencies likely to happen in the future. That's a simplified response. It kind of lumps it all together, but that's basically what we're talking about at this point. The term prepper, like what we know today, started to gain popularity in the 1950s and 60s after the Cold War. And it was a response to a threat of nuclear war. You'll see the media, if you do some research, you'll see where the media had actually made posters of like preparedness, build your bunkers for a nuclear war that's coming. It is coming, so be prepared. You actually see posters of families with gas masks and how to build your bunkers, and it was scary, honestly. There was a lot of fear in that because they were told it was coming, and after the Cold War, which was, we all know, was pretty intense, it makes sense on why people had the mindset of survival. I need to prepare to protect myself and my family, because the mindset at that time was survival. So that's where it really started to gain popularity. We've always been, to some extent, a prepper. Even before media, we've always had something because we prepared for cold, harsh winters, hard summers. We always had food in storage pantries. It was a common practice for really ever. We've always done it, but when it came to the survivalist mindset, that didn't start becoming popular until the 1950s and 60s. And it basically became more popular of that concept after Y2K. You remember seeing all those where people bring the buckets and they store them in the basement, their survival food, and they taught how to survive an actual major event where you had to bug out. Survival in the woods or completely off grid. You'll see that after Y2K, attacks like 9/11, we saw that happen. So a new fear was born with that one. 2020, I mean, hello. I mean, we've seen a lot happen in 2020.
Yeah.
So it's easy to understand why we built the mindset of adding prepper with survivalist. And you can see where that connection was based upon the history. But we've always been, to a certain extent, preppers. But the meaning started to change because of media, the events that were happening, wars, diseases, natural disasters like hurricanes, tornadoes, these things. It's easy to understand where that came from. The survivalist mindset, these people have, it's different, but there's a lot of similarities. These guys have very strong skill sets, a lot of know-how. These folks know how to survive completely off grid. And I'm not really going to get into too much detail on that one because that is different compared to a prepper. I'm going to focus more on prepping and a
Mhm.
connection with homesteading because they actually technically are the same, believe it or not.
Yeah.
As
Well,
far I
it's
know,
funny. You probably have heard this term before, but I've used it myself. I don't know where it originated, but that homesteaders are always prepared, but not all, or homesteaders are always prepared, but not all preppers are homesteaders. And
right.
I think that's really true. And there are a lot of similarities.
Mhm.
Um, Definitely. To the point though that I feel like media has really taken that prepper term and kind of pushed it maybe towards the extreme and or just the way that it's viewed and making it seem like an extremist. And there are some people that maybe do take it to extreme. I mean, but you can even say that with homesteading. Like I've had
Mhm.
people, people that I love dearly, I'm very close to and in real life, and they'll be like, "Boy, you're kind of taking this a little far with a homesteading." So I think even there you can see extremes, but I think media maybe has pushed, or at least that's my view. I think media has perhaps pushed more of the extremist views or thoughts with the word prepper than necessarily with homesteading, maybe.
Yeah, that definitely plays a massive role in it because now you have TV series, you've got movies that turn preppers into like main survivalists that are like extreme people, and it's like
Yeah.
not necessarily, guys. It's entertaining, it's entertainment, and that's basically it. Just kind of exploded. So that's but it's important to understand the history that we've always been preppers to a certain extent, but our mindset isn't always survival. It's thriving, and there's a difference. So and
Yes.
it's that we do go hand in hand as homesteaders and preppers. We're thriving. That's what that is. And it's just you had to keep that in mind when we're talking about prepping. We're not, yes, we can, we're better prepared for emergencies or disasters, but that's not our main focus. Is just survival. We want to do more than that.
Yeah, 100%. So I know that you have been working on earning your degree in psychology. And so what I think is really interesting is when we're able to, I'm not sure if I'm going to verbalize this quite right, but when you're able to almost separate yourself just a little bit from your emotions so that you can look at it objectively and also see what goes on in the body when we're feeling different emotions, because emotions aren't just feelings, they do impact our body. And so specifically when anxiety or dangerous situations, like how does that affect the way our brain works?
That's a great question because it's such a complex process. I'm going to try to simplify it, make it a little bit easier. First, when we're in the middle of a situation and we start to feel like, oh no, I'm in danger, there's a process that goes on in the brain. At first, it starts at the amygdala, and that part of your brain is where your fight or flight response comes into play. That sends a signal to the hypothalamus saying, we're in danger. You need to prepare the body to do something. So the hypothalamus is going to send stress hormones to the rest of our body. And that's where our automatic nervous system kicks in. You're going to have there's two parts of that one. You have your sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic, I like to think of sympathy. It's a response to, there's an emotion, right? There's a lot going on. If you're in a dangerous situation where you start to feel that fear, like there's something going on, that kicks in. Your heart rate starts to rise, and then your breathing increases, and you start to feel tense, and you're like, okay, I gotta do something. Your pupils are dilating. It's like you're ready to do something. Do you fight or do you flee? And that's where, depending on the circumstances, your brain is firing all cylinders. It's going to decide, what do I need to do to survive this moment because I am in extreme danger. I have to do something. And it just depends on what's going on. Sometimes you may have the opportunity to fight and do something. Other times you need to flee, and your brain's going to help you do that. And sometimes you may have to run very, 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 very fast. Like you've never ran before. You're going to have a strength like you've never had before because your body is saying, we need to survive. Right now, I'm not focused on what's going on with the TV. I'm not focused on what's politics. None of that is important. None of that was required for survival. My only focus to survive, and what do I need to do? And once you get to that point where you get through that time of extreme, like I'm in danger, and now you're in a state of safety, your brain is still working, but now your parasympathetic nervous system is going to kick in and say, okay, we're good now. We can chill, relax. So your brain is still working, but now it's saying we're in a safe place. So now the breathing starts to slow down, the heart rate goes down, and you're able to go, and things relax. And now your digestion will even start to kick in a little bit more because it stops temporarily because it's not required for survival. Now you're designed to reach that point where you can relax because now you're safe. And then even after that point, your brain is still working on the situation. You're going to have another part of your brain that's going to have the memory of the event and the emotions that you had during that time. It's built into your brain. So you say, okay, next time I need to do A, B, or C. Or I just need to completely avoid that situation because that was terrifying. I almost died. We need to do something different. It's going to remember that. So next time around, you're not going to do the exact same thing, right? So we're designed to actually do this. This is totally normal. It's the hippocampus, not the remember. The hippocampus is the one that's going to help you remember that. We're designed for this. This is totally normal. So if you feel that, you're not crazy. You're normal. Things are actually going really good. But you're designed to get to that point where I need to survive. I need to do something. And then when you're safe, now you can relax. So the problem we run into that is sometimes after a major event, there was a trauma, you can build a phobia, or the fear of a possible event happening again or something worse happening can be paralyzing. So it feels like you just can't enjoy your life to the full potential. That's where things can get hard because you're constantly in that state of fight or flight, but you're actually safe where you're at. You're just thinking, your mind is thinking there's a perceived threat of something that could happen. So now I'm overwhelmed with fear and I don't know what to do. I need to fix it, but there's no threat. So that's when things kind of get iffy. Mental illness obviously is a major topic, and I'm not going to get too deep into that. So please see a professional if you have something like that, then work on that. But I'm dealing with this situation like you see now in the media. You're watching TV and you see something happen, you're welling up and you feel the emotion. It's like we want to get to a point where we can be at calm and at peace because that is how our body works. You need to see the person as a whole, not just the food we eat, the water we drink, are we exercising? We also had to focus what's going up on here because it's all connected. We are one whole body. So if we look at the body as a whole, we can be the best we can be as long as when it's healthy. And if it's not, we need to seek extra support and extra help.
Yeah.
So it's important to know that.
Yeah, and I agree. And sometimes it's that mental thing, because the mental part does impact the physical. As much as sometimes we would like to think that it's separated, it's really not. And often getting just stuck in that high elevated state, we're not truly in fight or flight. I always try to transpose those together and then it comes out really goofy. But like you'll have elevated adrenaline, elevated cortisol levels. And so you're not like in the full on. And so for me personally, like I often deal with elevated cortisol levels. And some of that is, can definitely be hormonal related. Like there's a lot of different things that impact that. But so for me is I will then be like, okay, let's try to get out of the parasympathetic and into the sympathetic. So I will very consciously try to use breathing and make myself like inhale to like a count of 4, hold the breath for a count of 4, and then breathe out for a count of 6 or 8. So I think it's technically kind of like box breathing. I have a very small understand, like I haven't done a ton of study on breath work, but it is funny the way, like if you just do that and you make yourself focus for a minute on that exhale, like I will feel like the muscles relax. So it's really interesting. So I try to like make myself be aware of when I'm like feeling really tense.
Yes.
And then just be like, okay, even if it's just like 2 or 3 of those breathing sequences, and then go about. So yeah, I think part of it is awareness too. So having conversations like this is really helpful so that you can be like, okay, let me take note of when I feel this happening, and then some type of tool. And oftentimes like that awareness is the first step, and then
Yep.
you can progress from there. So anyways, I just wanted to share that because that the breathing, when I found that, I'm like, oh, it's been really helpful for
Yes.
me. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I try to do it at least once a day where I can just be at peace. I have a healthy breakfast or lunch after I've eaten. I'm not hungry, I'm not stressed. To do those breathing, because it also helps the strength of your heart and your lungs, but it's also calming your mind and relaxing your system because you're at your peak health when you can do that and you can just find that calm and that peace. It makes a huge difference. Even if you don't think you need it, I say just try it. It's awesome. It really is good.
Yeah. Um, so on the subject of moving of preparedness and mental health, because oftentimes it's kind of seen in the negative, but for me, and I think for the majority of homesteaders, anyways, at least most of the homesteaders that I'm in conversation with, the majority of homesteaders, preparedness actually brings me a extreme amount of peace.
Yes.
Like it is part of my security. In fact, one of my favorite things for this time of year as we're recording this is everything is coming in from the garden. We're pretty much at the tail end. And so it's the most full that my pantry
Yes.
really ever is. And
Uh-huh.
even last night, like I was just looking at, I've got my threaded onions, and then I had some smaller onions in the crop, and so I just have those in some little wire shelves, baskets that cook on the shelves, and I just could look up and see. It sounds so funny, but like I see all of these onions, and I was like,
Oh
like
yeah.
it was just,
Yep.
yeah. So I like preparedness can be a beneficial part to mental
Yes.
health, I think. But
Yes.
yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So how does preparedness affect our mental health?
I think you nailed it on the head right off the bat. It's actually one thing I point out to people is when it comes to proper preparedness, when it's done correctly, should reduce stress. It's not supposed to make it worse. So if you actually feel more intense, like, oh, I'm so behind, or I can't do this and I can't do that, you have a list of things I can't, it's gonna raise that stress level where you're in panic mode. It's like I need to do something to fix it. It's actually supposed to give you some peace. And every little bit you do is one step closer. It's like that savings account where every dollar you put in, it's compounded, it raises more. You're not taking away, you're giving and you're building. And it should help reduce some of the stress. So even just every little bit, every one little step, every little onion, every little jar helps. And I, like you said, I love at the end of the season just staring at the pantry, seeing all the colors. And it's like, oh, it's so colorful and all that good food. And I'm looking forward to winter because I get to eat every single bit of it. And I love it. It's not just survival food just in case I have an emergency. I want to eat this now. I want that pumpkin pie. I want that apple pie. That coffee stacked up in my pantry. Oh, there's something about coffee beans that make me so happy. Oh,
I am right there with you. Just the smell of coffee and
yes.
the looking at the bean. Like yeah, I'm like coffee lovers rejoice right now
Yep.
and join in with us.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I got quite a bit of it, and it's actually on automatic order too, just in case I forget to buy it at the grocery store. It is right there. It is coming. It's gonna be right on my front porch. Seeing that tiny little box makes me so happy. It's like I told my doctor recently. I said my blood type is caffeine because I love coffee.
Okay, I love
Yep.
that. I have not said that before, but I'm like, ooh, I
Yeah.
very much relate to that
Yep.
statement. Yeah.
Yep. And it feels good, and it I don't know. It's like I said. I tell people it should help reduce the stress, and then it's not going to fix every single problem that can possibly arise. We see that happening with these hurricanes. Not everybody was prepared, and you could have been prepared, but
Still
some
had
people
issues.
still had
Yes.
problems. It
Yeah.
happens, but they were. I'm watching some people right now, and they're doing fantastic. I love the mindset, and yeah, it's scary, but they're like, okay, I learned this, and I learned this, and I learned this, and it's like I love that so much. So it's encouraging to see some of that happen. And also another thing it does when you're prepared or you're prepping, it makes you aware of what's going on around you, like in your general area, your home, your
Mhm.
neighborhood, your community, your state, federal level. It does force it can be a little uncomfortable because it does force you to recognize some things, and like you said, being aware of what's going on can be a little scary, but it should help you say, okay, this is a possibility, this is definitely happening, and it's not very pleasant. What can I do? It's like, well, my family really likes onions, so I'm going to grow some onions in this tiny little box. You could do so many things. It helps you notice your possibilities and things you can do. And you're also aware of what's going on. So you're not sticking your head in the sand. I'm not telling you that. I'm like, please don't do that. But also don't be constantly staring at the news, wanting to know what's happening in other countries right now. Right now, I want you focused on what's going on in your home first. Then you can focus on what's going on outside your home. So if your family is well and you're healthy and you're doing things here, now you can focus on your community, your state, your federal. It does force you to be aware, but it can be a very positive thing because it should be giving you the opportunity to say, I can do something. Now all of a sudden you see this shift. It's not like oh, I can't. No, it says, what can I do? It shifts the mindset. That's something, and you also need to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say that, but it sounds kind of harsh, but we do need to be realistic. For example, if you live in Florida, realistically, you can face a hurricane. Here in Michigan, Metro Detroit, I'm not worried about, hurricanes. I could have a tornado. We definitely get snowstorms. Okay, my state, it's shaped like a mitten that tells you everything. Yeah, it tells you everything you need to know about our climate. So realistically, I do need some salt for my driveways and my sidewalks. Okay, I live in the suburbs. I need a good shovel. Going to the tiny little plastic one you shove inside the trunk of your car, it's not going to work. Okay, I need to be realistic about what my needs are, what my family needs, and my community. So keeping that in mind and what could possibly happen in the future, realistically, I'm probably going to have a snowstorm. I'm probably going to have, an ice storm that takes out my power. So I need to have some backup, a generator, or some people use solar. Solar doesn't work well for my house. I don't even try that. I don't get enough sunshine. So it's like having that helps you focus on where you're at today and where can I be in the future. So if I have a positive view for the future, I'm thinking, ooh, I love apples. My family loves apples. So if I have the opportunity in this space, I want to grow some apple trees. I can't harvest an apple immediately after I plant it in the ground. Sometimes if I plant some green beans, within a couple of weeks, I'm having bushels and bushels of green beans. It's not the same way with, apple trees, right?
True.
I have to be thinking further beyond today and tomorrow, the years ahead. My son may benefit more from that tree than I will today, but that's okay because I have a positive viewpoint of the future despite the fact that today looks kind of bleak. And that's okay because I'm aware of what's going on around me. So it's keeping that mindset is truly important because homesteading and prepping will help ease that anxiety and the stress and the fear. It's not going to take it away completely. I can't encourage people to say, well, you can be 100% self-sufficient because I would be lying to you. We need to be community sufficient.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's one thing I try to drill into people is homesteaders and preppers, we're not self-sufficient 100%. We are community sufficient. So keeping that in mind, and there's one thing I heard recently, actually, just a couple of days ago, Jessica Sowards from Roots and Refuge Farm on one of her YouTube videos. She said something that it just struck my heart and I loved it. I said, yes. I was yelling at the screen. I said, yes, sister, you heard me. I was like, she obviously didn't hear me, so hello. She said, fear pushes, but wisdom leads. And I was like, yes, it's like this. I was surrounded by, but if you don't have to go anywhere. You just turn on the TV and there's bad news here, this happened, this is going to happen. And it's just bleak, 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 bleak. And then you're going down the road, you see political signs everywhere. Just, this person did this and this person did that. And I'm like, we are bombarded with just chaos and division and fear. And it's like, I'm not going to be pushed by that. I will be led by wisdom to being aware that today is not going so great. Watching the hurricanes and tornadoes and things happening. Yeah, it's scary, but this is going to help me to make wise decisions to care for my family and care for my community. And if you have a church, you can help take care of your church. And that's what I'm focusing on is we're community sufficient. And if you have a strong community as a homesteader and prepper, you know your neighbors. And you might know your neighbors' neighbors, right? especially here where I'm at in the suburbs, I've got a lot of people. There's a lot of people that I can talk to that we're friendly with, and not everybody is homesteading, not everybody is prepping, and that's okay. Every once in a while, like especially during the holidays, I want to make like a little loaf of bread or some cookies or something and pass it on to the neighbors. They just love this stuff. They just eat it all up. Little gift baskets, and we're exchanging stuff all the time. I'm the only homesteader from miles, but that's okay because I've got friends and family here that just we're always looking out for each other. I might have a neighbor that my lawnmower could break down. My neighbor's got one. He'll lend it to me, and I can cut my grass. There's always that connection where if as long as you have a good community, you're going to have that support system. You're not supposed to be doing all of this by yourself. It's going to get overwhelming. You're going to get stressed out. You're never going to reach your full potential. And like I mentioned 20 times already, I'm not focused on surviving. I'm focused on thriving. I want to be resilient.
Yeah.
I don't want to just be a victim. I don't want to be sticking my head in the sand, say, if something goes wrong, the government will take care of me. I'm fine. And that's no.
Yeah.
Sorry, but no.
Yeah.
So it's getting that mindset today of having friends, having family that you can trust and lean on, and to fill in those gaps, and you can fill in those gaps. Community sufficiency is really going to help, and not to mention you're building some really cool relationships with some really cool people. All right, so you can't really go wrong with that, and that's also going to help your mental state because now you got friends. I want friends. I like friends. They're cool. Who doesn't want one?
Yeah, and it's so needed. Like, I don't know that we were designed to ever be able to know all of the bad things that are happening around the world like we are now.
Yeah.
I know that our brains and our emotional system and all of that has not had the capacity
Right.
to catch up to just the state of technology and the way that it's developed in the last 100 years, like honest to goodness, even in the last 10 years in all reality. And so I think it's really important that we remind ourselves of that we're cognizant of that and focusing on what we can control. And that is exactly what you said. It's what can I do? Because if you get stuck in the what I can't, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because your brain will work to whatever your thought process is, which is why it's so important to be able to control our thoughts. And you do have the ability to control your thoughts. That is something that it can be hard when you're stuck or something is scary, and not going into a false reality of being like, this isn't happening, denial when it is happening, but you can control your thoughts and the way that you're reacting to a situation. It can be hard. It is that self-awareness, but our thoughts are something that we do have control over. And so one of the things that I know you're not a medical professional and not giving medical advice or anything like that, but can you share with us, because high anxiety is something that right now in our society is a big deal. And part of it has been because of social media. We have higher levels of anxiety, just being exposed to more bad things because that tends to be, that's what sells with media, or that's what gets attention, all those things. So there's a reason that's what's shown to us. But it can increase anxiety states for people. And I know a lot of people are dealing with high anxiety states right now. So can you share a little bit with us about your experience with high anxiety and helping someone who may be in that state a little bit of things that they can do or that has worked for you to help reduce anxiety and stress related symptoms?
Yeah, it's honestly the first thing I tell you, breathe. I know it sounds cheesy, but you mentioned it earlier, and I happen to agree. Just stop and breathe. The in, the out. Just give yourself a chance to just stop and breathe and think about what's going on. And like we mentioned before, being aware, you have to assess what's going on. And it just making sure to take that break to just say, hold on, I'm going to stop this. So if it's an uncomfortable conversation or you're in an uncomfortable place, sometimes it's okay to just say, I need to stop and I need to walk away and get into a lone place and just breathe. And to try to bring that nervous system down to a state of calm so you can start to think a little bit clearer and you're no longer responding out of emotion or fear. It's really important. Just breathe. The first thing to do is breathe. Another thing is you can do things for a little bit more long term. I hate to say it long term, but you might understand what I'm saying about this one. Develop a hobby. if there's something you're really interested in, go ahead and dig into it. Try some things. Like it could be, sewing, it could be woodworking, it could be you want to build a new skill. Try those and learn how to do something. It helps boost your confidence levels, and because like we mentioned before, we're going from a state of I can't to I can. It takes time, so it's not going to be an immediate fix, but you're learning something new and you're focused on something that's fun and that interests you. You want to do something you want this lifestyle to be something that you want to do, not something you feel like you have to do. And that will also help reduce the anxiety because now you're looking forward to getting out and pulling some weeds in the garden. Yeah, it might be 100 degrees and you're like, no, not today. But the next day it could be nice and sunny and 70 degrees. It's okay to go out and pull some weeds. Gardening, I love gardening. I know this homesteading thing, like the podcast we're working on right now, we're gardeners, we're homesteaders. We're a little biased. Okay, that's okay. Yeah. I love going out and just taking my shoes off and sticking my feet in the soil and feeling it come between my toes. I love that feeling, right? There's actually some study that I read somewhere. It went right over my head. I couldn't understand a lick of what it was saying, but from what I can glean from it, that there was actually some sort of, I don't want to say chemical, but there's something in the soil that actually is
microbes.
Yeah, microbes. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's the word. The microbes in the soil actually are, helps with the depression and anxiety. It actually helps.
Yes.
I'm like, I can't say that surprised me.
Right.
So I'm trying to do a little bit more research on that because it's exciting.
That is. Well, and funny that you bring up the learning thing because learning actually releases the feel-good chemicals in the brain. Mm-hmm. Like when we're learning, and it's interesting because homesteaders, to be a successful homesteader, really successful at anything, is a love of learning, so that you're constantly evolving and learning. And you do, when you get immersed into it, like I've been like even within work things, like you'll get into almost what's called like a flow state, where it's pretty incredible if you've never been in it before, but it's part of that learning phase. And like and it's the doing, it's not just, hey, I love podcasts. I am a podcast junkie. I learned so much from podcasts, but it's listening to that. But then it's the actual part of putting it into motion and doing it. And it's that phase when you're putting it into motion and you're doing it, releases those feel-good chemicals. So there is actually, like, it's so interesting. We can see the effect of it, but then now we even have some of the science. It's like, well, this is why it's literally releasing some of those endorphins with learning, which is really cool. And I like the hands-on effect. It's funny that you said that because I have not quilted in it's probably been almost 3 years now. And quilting is one, I find it extremely meditative. Like I hand quilt. And so when you were saying that, I'm like, oh, I need to do a quilt this year. Like I need to pick a project. I need to do a quilt this year. So now I've got mine. Yeah. So sorry. Anyhow, continue on there. But I was like, ooh, this is good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like once you get in there, it really makes a difference. And yeah, I'm a sucker for gardening. It's just the way I am. There's also something that is so fulfilling that when you take this tiny little seed, this little tomato seed, and then just a couple months later, you see these giant red tomatoes. It's so exciting, the color and the vibrancy, and it's going to taste good. Nothing compares to a homegrown tomato. You go to the grocery store, it's okay, all right, but there's nothing compares. Onions and garlic are some of my favorite things to grow. It's just amazing. And then putting it, like we said in the beginning, putting it in your pantry and you can step back and see, and it's so relaxing and it relieves the stress and it's exciting because of all the color. You're excited for the future because now you're looking forward to all the recipes and the things you can do with it. And now it's a shift, a whole mind shift that's different. And you also experience this one thing I encourage people that are struggling with, anxiety and fear, practice some gratitude and thankfulness. Yeah. When I'm out, one thing I've tried to learn, I started doing this about a year ago, is that when I'm out harvesting or I go pick up some food from the local garden or the local farmer and I'll bring it home, I'm thanking the Lord for that harvest. I said, you just provided me some harvest to feed my family for the coming months. That could be snowy, it could be rain, I don't know what's going to happen. But I practice gratitude and thankfulness because, wow, I live in such an amazing time in the world where I can just get into my car and drive 15 minutes to a farm and buy some fresh produce that was grown on his property in the same area and bring it home, and I can preserve it. I can eat some of it fresh. Wow, what an amazing time to be alive, right? And I can, if I wanted to learn how to can something safely, I've got books, I've got videos, I've got resources that can tell me, hey, this is a safe and tested recipe. I can do that at my own fingertips. I could just grab my phone and look. That is awesome. So it's like practicing gratitude already kind of helps lift that mood up and reduces the stress, because now it's like you're either gonna be thankful or you're gonna be miserable. Well, which one do I want to be? I don't particularly like being grumpy. I wake up some days and I'm kind of grumpy. Let's just be honest. I usually feel better after I have my coffee, so I'll do that. So yeah,
happiness in a cup.
Yep, yeah, that's exactly it. And my back and body might hurt, but that's all right. I'm sipping my farmhouse teas, in the afternoon. I'm feeling good. All right. Practicing gratitude, listening to some positive music or podcasts, doing something that just fills your cup up. Going for a walk is another thing. I really enjoy going for a walk. I'll just be listening to some positive music. There's just something about that you're filling your brain up, so the devil can't put nothing in it. So doing that, especially in the first half of the day, or really whatever works for you, really helps get you on the right mindset. So today's going to be a good day. It's raining. It might be a little slushy outside because it's cold, but today's going to be a good day. We're going to do some good stuff. At the end of the day, you're looking forward to bed. Do it all again today or tomorrow. And it's just practicing that and keeping that mindset of just feeling positivity, but also being aware of your surroundings and being aware that when you do start to feel the fear that could come, or right now things are a little bleak, you can do something about it. Having that I can. Mm-hmm. And remembering, there's one thing I also try to tell people with anything, even outside of homesteading, having the mindset that this is one thing that's really helped me, is having a mindset, I can only fail if I quit trying. So I try to encourage people, just try something. I was talking to a friend of mine. She wanted to grow some onions this year. She's, the full-time mom and worker. She's doing an awesome job. Well, the onions didn't grow very well this year. She's like, oh, I failed. I said, no, you didn't. I said, girl, you already made the one step of just planning. That's a big step forward. I said, and you learned something new. It's like, it's okay. You didn't fail. You tried. It's okay. So getting that mindset of you only fail if you quit trying.
Yes.
So and as homesteaders, I mean, we still fail. I've been doing this since 2015, and there's always something that doesn't go right every single year. I'm actually counting at this point, because now I'm looking at it as a sense of what can I learn. Yep. Sometimes it's my own mistake, or in the other times it's just crummy luck, crummy weather. I can learn something from it.
Well, and if we're not failing, then honestly, we're not learning anymore, because we're not putting ourselves in a position. You're stagnant.
Yep.
And I don't want to be stagnant. Now, I'll be honest, there's some times in my life where I'm like, whew, maybe I need to slow down my learning pace just a little bit, that balance part, and that's totally fine. But if you're not failing, you're not growing. I mean, it's the same with, exercising and muscle growth. That muscle actually has to reach a point of failure before it can rebuild and grow. Mm-hmm. But it's true in so many aspects of our life. And again, I love it. It really is mindset. I don't think people give enough credit to how powerful mindset is, because we're very much doers. And even within homesteading too, we're very much doers. I mean, homesteaders, they're hard workers. We're not afraid of working hard, getting our hands dirty, getting sweaty, all those things. And so sometimes I think we plow ahead without addressing the mindset or remembering to come back to it and kind of reset it. Yeah. So I think, this has been a really, really great conversation, and everybody can control their mindset. Like, it doesn't matter where you're at, what you're doing, what your circumstances are. It is absolutely something that's in your control, which in itself is comforting, because it does feel like there's so many things that are outside of our control, but we can control our thoughts, and then those control our actions and everything else. So this has been such a fun conversation, Brittany. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. That's been awesome.
Yeah. For those who are like, okay, I want to hang out with this girl, where's the best place for people to do that?
Pioneering Today Academy with you.
Yay.
So yeah, you're gonna find me there. I'm quite chatty. So every once in a while, once a week, I like to try to share some things. I'm in the Metro Detroit area. I am smack dab in the middle of the suburbs. So you can find me there. I do have a Facebook page, but I don't have anybody on it. I
Okay.
got rid of it a while ago.
Yes.
So yeah, you can find if you're not in the Metro Detroit area, then you'll find me at with Melissa, hanging out, making somebody laugh,
Yeah,
messing some
Brittany is
things up.
always great for a smile inside our community of the Pioneering State Academy. So definitely appreciate you, Brittany. And in fact, I'll see you in a couple more hours because we'll be
Yeah,
hopping
the
on
Q
for
and
our
A.
Q&A. Yeah, our Q&A here
Yes,
shortly there. So I get my double dose of Brittany today, just like I get my double cup of coffee. I'm going to go get that now.
Jesus fix it. Jesus
Yeah.
fix it.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, Brittany. This has been really, really wonderful conversation. And I know that it's going to definitely help some people. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Take care.
You too. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that episode with Brittany. I know I did. And it's funny. Funny is probably not the right word, but it is fascinating how when we look at scripture, that so much of what we are told to do in scripture is for our benefit. We're to always be praising God and coming with a thankful heart. So the practice of gratitude, that is a biblical scriptural basis and is very true because when you are thinking of things that you are grateful for, worry and anxiety cannot live in that same space. When our brain is focused on listing out what we're thankful for in that moment, that is exactly where we're at. And so that anxiety, that fear, all of those things have to get pushed to the side because the brain can't do both of those functions at once. So finding ways to be grateful and thankful and listing them out, that act of gratitude is actually something very biblical. And I think the more that we discover with science, actually, the more we discover how much truth is to a lot of those biblical practices, we just get them married together. So the act of gratitude and the act of saying, taking every thought captive, I said that backwards, and the renewing of your mind under Jesus Christ, scriptural, it's the same thing as we can control our thoughts. Sometimes it's very hard when you have a lot of anxiety or a lot of racing thoughts. Sometimes that's hard, but it can be done. Sometimes you just have to be very, very cognizant. And it's something that we're doing over and over again. It's not a once and done thing. So one is for me is listing through the things that I am grateful for, saying those out loud, even if nobody else is there, right? Or if someone else is there. But there's something powerful about us voicing them even more so than just thinking them. So oftentimes I will just list them out audibly to myself, speaking the verse, as I said, saying, I am taking my thoughts captive in Jesus Christ. I am a new creature in him, a new creation. And praying some of those verses just out loud can also be very helpful. And then I find the Psalms to be incredibly peaceful. So meditating on some of the Psalms and just reading through there, they can just be a balm and a reassurance. And then just spending time in prayer and in God's presence. So those are all things that I have found that help me when I am in those very high states of anxiety and or stress, is making sure I'm putting those things into place, along with, as I shared, doing that breath work where it's that deep inhale, counting to 4 or 6, holding the breath for the same amount you did the inhale for. So if you're doing it for four beats, inhale for 4. And then exhaling for longer than you inhaled and held your breath. So I couldn't actually demonstrate that and count it out loud for those of you who are watching via video, but that has also been very, very helpful for me, especially when you combine them all together. So thank you so much for joining us in today's episode. Until next week, blessings and mason jars for now, my friends.